Hey everyone, Mulligan here, and welcome back to another episode of Eternal Errors. For those new, this is a series where we take a look at some mistakes I make, and I try to educate others on what the correct decision is in a given situation. We usually focus on a specific deck in each episode. This one's going to focus on FTP Moment, a deck I've recently been trying to update for the Fall of Argenport metagame. I really wanted this episode to focus on situations that could come up when you're playing this deck, and that's the reason I chose the examples that you guys are about to see. I'll include the list in the comments section for those that want to see it, but the list is definitely not final, so I'll also be including deck lists from other successful players in the video description below. Let's get into it. The first game is against a Huru mid-range deck. The initial plan with Aurelian Merchant here was to just get a Legion banner out of the market so I could Wisdom of the others. However, a Heart of the Vault ends up on the top of my deck. After some thinking, I came up with this convoluted plan to set up a turn 6 Heart of the Vault over the next 3 turns with the depleted power I got from Find the Way. I would still end up getting a Legion banner with the Merchant, but I delayed the Merchant play until turn 5 on purpose, which I think was a mistake. In hindsight, I think Heart of the Vault doesn't matter as much in this matchup. It can pop Aegis when it comes in, but 2 damage doesn't actually kill anything. I have a Scorpion Wasp in the market as well, which is what I should have grabbed instead, which means I could have fetched the Primal Sigil with Find the Way earlier instead of the other 2. So I'd have the option to Wisdom of the Elders earlier. Huru can't really deal with Scorpion Wasp if it's ambushed in. It's good to plan ahead, especially with this deck, but this is a lesson about focusing only on what matters, meaning which cards matter and which cards don't. This next game is an older one against another Huru deck, but there's a reason this is in the video. The situation I want to highlight here comes up at the very beginning of the game. Let's actually listen in and hear what I have to say regarding the first few turns. And this is the type of deck where you don't necessarily want to scout first. So I think I'll go ahead and grab the first time Sigil and we'll just see what we draw. Alright, we got a Wasp. Now I'm gonna scout. That's a Hailstorm. And then you really gotta think about what I mean, I guess you have to do this with every deck, but if it's Chalice, Hailstorm's okay before Chalice comes down. But if it's like Huru mid-range or TJP mid, this isn't that strong. Now see, this is what I talk about when, you know, like we don't know if we need that or not. When I talk about scouting too early, when anybody that mentions this deck talks about scouting too early. So this is something that will almost always come up when you're playing FTP Moment. At what point is it correct to use your crest card to scout? When these crests first came out, there was this golden rule that you always scout first. And that couldn't be further from the truth when it comes to playing this deck in the early game. You need to identify the matchup and what your game plan is against the deck you're facing first, then play your crest for the scout ability. The influence your opponent shows first is what helps you identify the matchup. It's all about getting as much information as you can before playing your crest for power. Obviously, there's times where you can't do that. Like when a crest is the only power you have in hand and you can't afford to miss power on your turn. Or you're trying to set up a certain turn where you play a Heart of the Vault on time. Things like that. But in this case, even scouting on turn 2 was too early because it turns out Hailstorm is a pretty bad card late game versus what ends up being a Nostrix Porter deck. And if this was Huru control instead, Hailstorm is even worse. Our final game in this video is against what looks like an Argenport Revenge deck. I've managed to keep the board under control so far, and I get to a turn where I need to decide whether to play Moment of Creation or not. Let's listen in and see what I do. The problem is if I play this and then he has even one harsh rule, we die. Okay. It was pointed out after this game ended that I should have just dropped Moment of Creation to set up lethal, hoping my opponent didn't have harsh rule in hand. While I didn't disagree with that line, I also thought the play I made was fine as well. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt like my line was just a half measure. Dropping Moment of Creation down does seem like a play to win line, which you want to do. But my opponent's hand was 2 random 5-drops from the equivocates I played earlier and 5 unknown cards. If any one of those cards was harsh rule, it's likely that I lose the game. But I could have drawn more threats or more card draw that would draw me into threats, which this deck has a lot of. So I'm curious on what you guys would have done here. Let me know in the comments section below in this video. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Eternal Errors. Feel free to leave a like if you liked the video. If you have any ideas for this series, let me know in the comments section below. For those new, if you like what you saw, feel free to check out my previous episodes in this series by clicking the link on your screen. If you don't want to miss future episodes, subscribe to the channel. Clicking the bell icon under the video guarantees that you don't miss any future videos, as long as you don't mind notifications. Thanks again for taking time out of your day to watch this, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.